Hello, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out 125 over Anything Full Murderhobo by Dakota Krout. And, oh man, It's an amazing book. Good addition to the series. It's second book in the series, and yeah, a lot of good laughs, a lot of great development all the way around. Such as just the world development, the character growth, the yeah, the comedy, the humor, the connected, not connected
It
existences. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice getting back to Dakota Krout's puns. Like there are some of the other authors that do it and do it well. But as being one of the daddies, at least for us in the lit RPG space, he definitely has the dad level puns and jokes down pat, right? Um,
Yep.
Gosh, on one of the re-listens, I believe it's Luke, our full murder hobo. He basically was just in this very intense environment where he was like hyper vigilant, constantly like fighting for his life in the murder world and everything. And as he's kind of getting more comfortable with his friends again and everything, his druid buddy has encouraged him to do jokes, and they're like in this really, I think is when they were like fleeing from the assassins of the kingdoms and everything. And Luke's like, wait, like, hey, be careful. And everybody's like heightened alert, and it's like, there are ears everywhere. And they're like in a field of corn and everything.
Yep.
And it's like,
So
ah,
that's probably
yeah,
more of a dad Indiana joke, or at least
yeah. I was about
we
to
got
say,
that one quite
being
a bit around here.
being Midwest boys, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to use that one. Watch what you say, boy. There are ears everywhere, and just like what? Um, but yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before on stream about how like books are beautiful things for so many reasons, but just kind of like escaping reality and getting a bit of that respite from the crazy grind that is life. So to have those true just laugh out loud moments
Oh,
is always
that
refreshing.
and oh, I forgot to say our tagline: "Geek on my sleeve, learning how to human one book at a time."
Yeah, or one
And
story
this
at a time.
this definitely is a. I, most of the time, people can't accept information because they take it personally.
Mm,
By putting yourself into the setting of a book, it makes it easier to accept because it's
hmm
from a third party perspective, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, he did a subtle nod to, I believe it's Sun Tzu's Art of War, as it was like a double feature in the book. The murder hobo kept reading that, Taylor's dad gave her,
Yeah, yeah.
or gave him.
It's a reference
And
to Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Um,
yeah, yeah, and it's just like a lot of I another book we just did, Paragon of Blood, did something
mhm.
similar where it's like, oh, someone asked me what I should take or what's the most valuable thing that I take into, and that book it's Scars or whatever, where they're essentially fighting for their life. And
Yeah.
he was like, oh, weapons, armor, gear, but he's like, trust, trust in the people around us. But for Murder Hobo, anything, it was more about doing what you can to help them because they're locked or stuck in their mindset, and to
Mm,
give them opportunities to see it from a different perspective. And
with the
life is
sigils, right?
weird, and I almost have a play the devil's advocate default setting, if that makes sense,
Uh,
where even if I think it's a great idea and someone's explaining it to me, I'll typically like, okay, yeah, yeah, that's a thing, but what about or how about? And I try to and that's where people who know me understand it's not a I'm saying no, it's a but what if, and I'm trying to make sure that you thought it through as well as verbally processing and thinking it through myself.
I was about to
But
say,
in
like, it working on several different projects with you, 9 times out of 10, I love that because, both of us having management experience, you want a bit of that diversity, especially when you and I line up so much, like 95% of the time, like we're on the same wavelength. So the fact that you instantly go to, well, what about this? Or just kind of like playing off these other angles, like it helps make those ideas better. And then the other 10% of the time, I just want to smack you in the forehead and be like, "Stop!"
yeah,
Like,
sometimes it's not
let's.
relevant and
Yes,
not
yes.
constructive. Yeah. Yes, I
You're just being
and
difficult now.
we've come to terms with it and able to see it and adjust as
Yeah,
needed.
yeah. Um, but yeah, back.
And this one, the big, sorry, full completion of thought, was when, several times Luke ends up knocking out Andre, and it's because like he's doing his Wakeberry things or whatever, and continuing
Mhm,
to push and continuing to push, and
mhm.
sometimes you just need someone to tell you like, hey, you're becoming manic or matic or whatever it was, and you're no longer efficient. So just slow down. And that's personally that hits home a little too hard. And glad I have
Yes,
a good support system in my life who
yes,
is able
yes.
to notice it.
It's
I
very
get a little ragey at that moment, but yeah.
on the 23rd hour of the day when you're grinding away, with life and everything else. We all are, but that's why pickup groups suck. You need to really recruit your party with care and accept the diversity and different skill sets that they bring to the table. And like in a lot of ways, like that was one of the big takeaways for me. Like even this filthy murder hobo, as our bard likes to say, if you stop and don't get hung up on the fact that he's so rough around the edges, and you look past that to like what are they trying to accomplish and what are the values and goals they're trying to push, you're that much better for it. And when they were having their sharing moment after um Luke throws our mage into the flower coffin, and goes and knocked Andre out, and helped
Or
update
Taylor.
Taylor, yeah, update his channels and just like all this stuff and everything. And they're all like, "Oh, if you ever do this again, like da 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 da, like it's going to be war, like how dare you? I'm so raging." And he's like, "Okay, is it my turn? Well, let me tell you guys, if I ever think, like we end up in this situation again, I'm going to do the exact same thing because that's what friends do, whether you like it or not. Like, I'm going to fight for what's best for you, even when you don't realize that you're
And
doing this crazy stuff." And it's like, oh, wow, like
that's where
maybe,
reflection is a thing,
mm-hmm,
and and yet again, like in the moment when someone is confronted, not everybody can take constructive criticism,
most
and
people
I
can't.
guess for personal, like most of the time I can. Occasionally, I'm just not in the mindset to accept it, but um yeah, yeah, to the balance between trusting your gut. And I think it also a thing that really rings true for me is intent matters. Like
Mhm.
it seemed very manipulative and malicious, and sacrificing one of them to the plants and knocking out the other, but the intention was trial by fire and self improvement and to have continued success. So it yeah.
I find myself at times relating to our full Murderhobo, where there are times where, whether people like it or not, I have a issue with kind of being a bit forceful with what I think is better for them in the moment. And that's where, like you said, having people in your life who look at the intentions and don't always get caught up on the methods. Like, you know, we grow and adapt and you listen, like you said, reflect. And we saw a lot of that character development with all the cast as they're going and growing and developing and making less than optimal choices along the way. Um, but yeah, a lot of fun, and we could go and gush and rant and rave about all the other details, but should we get into a little bit more of the book itself
Or
per
yeah,
se?
we've been more on the philosophy side of
Yeah,
things.
it's
We
one of those
can
days.
dive into more directly contextually relevant information.
So those kind of new to us, we typically do these, typically like almost always do them in audio format, and typically bounce back and forth between like 2 to 3x speed. But one thing that I noticed about this audiobook, um and granted, you know, unaffiliated plug, we listened to it on Book Funnel instead of Audible. I think Dakota Krout is going to be releasing a lot of his audio content earlier on his own platform. If you want to pick it up there and support the author more directly, you won't be able to bring it into Audible, which kind of makes our libraries a bit different. But something I wanted to know if you noticed, um, the chapter gaps seemed longer for me. And I'm always listening, and like my depending on my headset,
I
there will be a
I
pause
think
before like
it
a call or
was
something else comes
the
in.
narrator,
Okay.
um, because I have had mine back down to two,
Okay.
versus my 2.5, and I listened to, or well, so short version, yes, but I also think it was like, uh, yeah, I felt like the narration as a whole, like I was pushing 3.5, no problem, and
You felt like
yeah.
he was a little bit slower in general.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Narrator did a very good job.
Agreed.
The book funnel application, couple nuances, but yeah, I think yeah, a little bit longer breaks in between, but I felt like the thing as a whole was a little bit slower.
Okay.
But book funnel has more points on the linear scale for how fast you can go, where Audible has
Mm,
like quarters. This had
that's
like
true. I think it
point
was
one,
by
point two,
10.
point three,
Yeah.
point four, point five. So I don't know if it's like what is two times
I
or
I don't think it was that, because I can't remember if I was at like 2 or 2.5 for this re-listen. But it almost got me every time where the
you
pause
thought
was
it
longer than
paused
normal.
or
I'm like,
disconnected.
am I getting a call? Am I, like, is something else ringing through? And then it's like, then finally the chapter starts. It's like, oh, okay. Maybe they're just padding it a little bit to try to get
And
those
it could
numbers up.
be a host of variable things, such as Audible has, AI algorithms that trim it to the same variation every time. And
Could
since
be,
it was custom and personal, it
could be.
didn't have it. Some I felt were quicker, some were longer. Um, Maybe it was the pump fake, made you look kind of moment, which,
Yeah,
you know, I looked every time. Um,
it got
yeah,
me. It got me.
couple things I would like added, but that's different story unless we're going down that rabbit hole.
No, no, we're about 20 minutes into stream
Yeah,
podcast, whatever, plane of
Yeah, it's just
existence this
slice of
this
life,
thing
quality
is
of
on.
life effects. But yeah, book funnel is a thing, and yeah, it's did great. Couple quality of life things I would like added, but that's just because I'm a power user. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we got to see a lot more of each of their home planes, except for oh, the mage. I almost said Asuna, but that's not right. Taylor. We got to see
Mm-hmm.
hers at the beginning when we almost killed the bard.
Yes. Yes.
And
Gave
I
him the
guess
nose
other
belt.
people didn't go to Murder World.
No, it pretty much was established that they would die, right?
Yeah.
Because Luke initially
Well, but
almost died.
now they have the well, not prismonic, because that's what Luke has now or whatever, but
Talk about the world speed.
fortified. What's that?
Oh, the upgraded mana channels.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, mono channels.
Yeah. From the head snails.
Yep. That is one thing that also Luke, or not Luke, sorry, Dakota. I was just thinking about Paragon of Blood.
Yeah.
Dakota did very well because in the first book he has the hallucinogenic berries that are in the second zone,
Yeah.
and he dreams about unicorns goring the goat look-alike, which
Hmm.
yeah, it just yeah. And then the fact that they were, but they weren't unicorns, and that unicorns are actually, it was
It was a fun take on it.
artistically, elegantly beautiful. The fact that they were like kind of like My Little Pony for like, oh, use the Funshine Ray or use the
Yeah.
whatever,
Power of
whatever. But
friendship.
then they were also kind of like, oh, you were telling me about it earlier. It's God, it's an old school cartoon where the horse ends up like eating people. I
I
can't
was
think of
telling
it.
you about an old school cartoon where horses ate people.
It was a YouTube thing. Oh my
Mm.
God. I want to say like Charlie. It's not that Charlie bit my finger, but it's the
Talk about the llama with the llama one
oh, it might have been
with
llamas.
Carl, where
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway, it beautifully mashed together, simple, whimsical unicorn pony things that
yep,
are magical
yep, yep.
into demonic death beams of,
Hey,
attack them with the super fun or whatever.
the things that like is supposed to be the most like fluffy and majestic creatures and all the different tropes is like the ultimate evil of zone 10, I want to say, because 9 was the
Yeah, I wanna say it
flying
was 10.
thingamabobs and whatnot. But yeah, I enjoyed that too.
And I don't want to say it's a staple, but his other series, which you should all check out if you haven't, Dungeonborn, the first mob that is created is a bunny
Yes,
that gets turned into a basher,
yes.
which is still just, the elegance of oh, there's another song that is not relevant at all,
Make
but is
makes you
shiny.
I haven't looked too much into his personal life, but it makes you wonder if like he has something against, the fluffy fuzzy, like maybe he had a older sister or whatever that like, took all his
Oh,
toys
too
and
much.
too much, yeah, too many sisters with all the fluffy bunnies and unicorns and just, all these things that there now are mobs in his worlds that you gotta defeat and destroy. Um,
Toy Story. There's a spin-off where they're like, Sid the Kid is the real hero.
I enjoy those. I
Yeah,
enjoy those. Yeah.
abstract thinking.
So much time lost on Reddit where they throw in these obscure fan theories where, too many of us up at 3 a.m. in a pandemic environment where your mind has time to wander.
Yeah, my favorite one so far, Ushiny. Captain Hook is actually the hero in Peter
Yes,
Pan.
yes.
Um,
I could see
and
that. I could see
anyway,
that. Gosh, man, the
uh,
ADD is strong today, guys. Like
yeah,
we're just murder hoboing this
I think
whole
it works for this book, but
yeah, yeah.
we had a lot of like great world advancement things go on as well.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about the character development with Luke getting the upgrades after reaching a more balanced mental state after
Mhm.
getting Cookie back. And he had a couple other bumps from making jokes, and they were
I
trying to encourage that.
I'm
Um,
I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop on the Cookie bit. We finally got Cookie back, but Cookie supposedly like whispers to him. So I wonder if Cookie is like partially just, actually talking to him because right now we just, like it's perceived where, like we find this whip, right, later
that
and
yeah is able to actually talk to him, and he just eats it, and
well,
he's like, they don't really talk, they
air
only
air
whisper.
quotes air quotes right where like we think like oh maybe this is more of like a true D&D type enchanted like warrior entrapped in a weapon da 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 and our murder hobo's like no like you don't do that, I'm gonna like convert you and whatever, but Cookie whispers. And we have this other big higher plane being in zone 50 that's kind of like hijacked his seal, um, that we learn about from the anyway. Okay, the nose goes.
Okay, so Cookie is the insert bone of the ear. In Murder World, Luke gets
Mm.
wrecked time and time again. When he gets wrecked, he then gets into the water and regenerates. Insert giant beepity beep thing that is giant,
Mm.
gets injured, loses that part of himself, goes into the water, regenerates a new one, and then is it still part of him? Are the whispers vibrations of what the guy is actually hearing as if it's
Could
trying
it
to perform its
could it
normal
be could it be
function
from the dude from Zone 50? Is it actually his
and it's
like
whispering to him?
oh, so he's kinda like
Like
giving him the
I am
vibe.
not saying it is, but I am
Mm.
also saying it is literally the smallest bone in the body, which is actually ginormous.
Well, it's
Um,
it's gotten ginormous after, like, soaking and bathing in the mana water and stuff, right? Like, that was part
or
because it's gained in size since we initially got it.
part or I thought the mana water increased its durability. And
And
then it wasn't until towards the end where it like literally is eating people. He like throws it at something and it like eats the bones and gets bigger and it's supposed to be
mm,
unwieldy, but then due to his
mhm,
power.
mhm.
So that is a whole separate yet similar thought construct
Mm.
of due to the goats killing each other, they end up feeding the ear bone more of it, kind of like insert squirrel moment here. In He Who Fights with Monsters, there are vampires that have the natural trait of consuming things and adding that trait to their blood. Insert example, eats C4 and then becomes like, or it's
Ah,
like blasting
yeah,
gel or whatnot, then
yeah,
becomes blasting gel.
yeah.
So the bone has the attribute or trait of when consuming other bones, then gets, um, you know, mass or whatever, whatever. So I, I, we're the way book one left off, or is that a hand raise or are you adjusting stuff?
I'm adjusting stuff.
Okay.
standing desk. I'm standing up, so I'm getting my fan blade out of the shot. Not that it makes a difference.
Okay.
Um,
Um, But yeah, so we had development for the characters, we had development for the world. The way book one left us off, we were literally the archmage, the arch druid, some no name nobody, and
mm-hmm,
the bard, which is the most feared thing in the world. Through
mm-hmm,
our no name nobody, we essentially overhaul and power up and boost all of our main guys. But as we found out, it may not even matter. And honestly, this is what I was excited about the multiverse because we're always stuck trying to save this current world.
mm-hmm.
But as we found out through book two here, they're essentially all fluffy where they didn't earn their potentia. They're just getting it gifted to them. But then
Right.
we know there is a faction, the Anarchinists, but not really for what they actually go by. They're slowly opening scars in the world to increase the natural ambient mana in the world to hopefully ascend it and then sidestep squirrel moment. He who fights with monsters, there's literally what they call an astral being, which
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, space is ever expanding and planets are his playground or his building blocks where he takes planets and chops them up and makes new ones. But as we know, people get strong enough that they develop their own planets, kind of like Andre's developing his own grove. That's still on the standard origin druid place. And then they're from the base world. And as you ascend, you can no longer come back.
Because there's not enough like mana to help sustain you.
Yeah, yeah. The
Which is a
idea for
common concept in like the cultivation type books or the lit RPG books, right? Like as you ascend to be a higher being, it kind of requires you to keep a lot of that stuff. Um, but one of the things I enjoy about books, and we've talked about it before, recurring themes here, is like, you're the hero in your own story, sort of a deal. So I really enjoy books that kind of like this one, where like the enemies, the villains, all of a sudden you get to their perspective, and it's like, are they though? Like when Luke meets the anarchist, he's pretty much like,
or anyway,
yeah,
continue.
yeah, yeah. He's like, why should you have to leave all your relatives, right? Like, why should you leave them all behind? And then you're like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. Why wouldn't you want to take the opportunity to give everybody a fighting chance to better their lives and to like bring your family along, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, yeah. And then like we hear it on the other side from Taylor, and she's like, yeah, well, like only 20 or 40% of them will live. And it's like, well, I mean, what's the right answer here? And just like a lot of times in life, like there
But
isn't really a right. Go ahead.
those were different methods. One was unicorn horns to increase your mana channels to allow them to be better, and the other one was to open scars that release
Right.
ambient mana, which then will increase.
I might be
And then
misremembering, but
the
I'm pretty
third,
sure there was a scene after he meets them that he shares it with the party, that they're like, hey, like if they did that, this is what would happen. Which
probably okay.
in this book, we learn that like the world is ending. That's why we have Zed the Bard, telling the story in book two. We're on day two of his
That is
storytelling.
That is another beautiful literary device where,
Hmm.
like, it's a story being told inside a story. And so
Hmm.
we have, like, future knowledge, but it's being explained from previous knowledge. Yeah,
And
as
it's from a known storyteller, and so it kind of helps with when you take a step back, you're like, well, how would Zed know what happened to Luke in Murder World, really, if he's telling this story? But then again, like he's powering up, and
I
there's some of
could
this
see
other
him
stuff.
unlocking an ability, kind of like how Andre can display his abilities or stats for
True,
everybody, and
true.
how, as far as we know, the Bard can project his mind and do the long distance
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, he's literally top of the top for mana channels, and like this is still he's yeah. There's a lot of potential growth. Um, yeah.
But carry on. You were telling us about the book and what happens.
Lost where I was, but next big interesting point. So we have our own worlds that they all go into. We have
Hmm.
the base world, which is a thing. Oh, I remember. So we can feed them snails, which no longer exists, to increase your mana channels if they live, which we have a loophole for how to make that happen. Um, Other alternative, the bard was saying, did you know that you pass down your mana channels to your offspring? So we could either open new scars to add more mana to the world. We could make a bunch of babies because we have the mana channels to pass on to them,
Do you
or we
think
could destroy all of the unicorns and feed them. Go ahead.
do you think the tornado of the red light district, his clones can procreate? Because he claims to be 10% of the population right now. And if he could pass down his mana channels and his
That
clones could
would be a lot
procreate.
more efficient, but I will also say that Genghis Khan, there's some like statistic out
Yeah.
there, and I can't remember it, but he essentially like something redonkulous, like 50% of this ethnicity is of his descendants. So if he can do it with one man, I'm pretty sure the Bard can do
Imagine
it.
Zed with 10% of the population being 100 plus years old,
Yeah.
making sure that humanity like this plane of existence actually has strong enough mana channels to survive the end of the
Well,
world and move on to the next.
and then that's where I wish I went through it again, but it was towards the end when he's meeting the anarchist,
Mhm.
and you get the variabilities between like you get stronger by consuming the previous world, or you can get stronger by attaching that world to your new world
Mhm.
through ascending and such. And then we still have the foreshadowing of Error or whoever actually ended up saving Luke. And then we have the altering factions of Anarchinists. And then the, yeah, yeah, for as bad as Luke had it, he definitely has someone looking out for him for the bigger picture. And as powerful
At least
as we
appears to
are,
be at this point, right? Appears to
or
be looking out after him.
time and time again, because he gave him the portal ability to get him out close to his time. He gave him the
All I'm saying is
anti-mage set armor.
to what end, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Supposedly this other being has laid claim to him, right? So to what end? Um, but yeah.
Yeah, it definitely gives me like God vibes where I'm too
Mhm.
strong. If I interact with the natural plane, I'll sneeze and obliterate half of, insert landmass.
Yeah, well, they break down the levels, right? Where supposedly level 20 is what we
Is
know
immortal
as the
teal for the
cap.
base world.
But
So you
he's
go to the
at a
next
level
zone.
30. And then if you look at where Luke is, he's roughly like a level a zone that he's progressed, and we're supposed to get to level 50 or zone 50 where we could meet this guy. So like what
But
kind of
there's
crazy tier?
also several differing things, and this is what I enjoy about the leveling system because based off the sigil, you can choose where to put your XP. So like you can hold it and do nothing with it. You can put it into
True.
leveling, you can put it
True.
into stats, you can put it into abilities, you can you can use the XP for whatever.
You could
And
hoard it like a miser.
and then the fact that they don't have telephones, but they have enchantments that can uh, take part of your accumulated.
mm,
It's not essence. It's potentia from however far away and bottle it up and hand it, tax it and whatnot.
yeah. Yeah. It was a fun scene when the king and the prince have their little wager.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Their version of fair. Oh, I've already killed them.
Yep.
Hey, there's
I've
some
had
over
it.
there. Do you want it? Yeah.
Right. Right. Just shows kind of like what a different level they're on compared to what came before them. Right.
Yep.
It's a fun book. It's nice because like Dakota Krout does a really good job at the world building and making sure there's like enough substance behind it. But at the same time, like as much as a lot of stuff feels fleshed out, it's just kind of like a fun,
Uh,
vibey book.
I get the feel of another outline book. And what I mean by that is if you read his Divine Dungeon series, it is very good. There are a lot of juicy developmental instrumental things.
Hmm.
But it's not until his alternative series authors come through and nitty gritty stats dump, flesh out more of it. This one, they're he could do a million different things with. This is only one of the base worlds,
Right.
and as we know, once you ascend,
Oh,
you have higher prismana or higher mana channels. You can procreate. So then that's their new starting point, as well as there's going to be multiple different starting points, as well as all the scars are their own world. And it makes sense for everybody to be human.
do you
But
think this could be another one of his multi collab things once he gets the full
I
series fleshed out? Like,
I
hey, you
have
take a base world.
weird feelings about it because he's deliberately this is not connected. This is
Or
its own IP.
let me reference
Um,
my other series half a dozen times
and
just so
yeah,
you want to go read it.
The Easter eggs still ring true, but I feel like on one hand, it was if he wanted to cash out, which I don't really see. On the reality, I think this is the template or the outline version of him doing collabs and him building his bigger empire. Um, I could see a lot of fun. I the and he could even do more in a different base world with a different way to interpret the stats.
Uh-huh.
Because as we see with Taylor, when she gets her grimoire, it
Mhm.
displays the stats and the sigil that we put with the testing is the way that we know the stats and we can interact and we can decide where to place and adjust them.
Mhm.
But if there was another base world that didn't have the sigils and had higher ambient mana, there'd be
Mhm.
differing ways to go about it and to interpret it. And we even see that between the differing classes and how, oh, Luke is like, I don't have spells, I have abilities or whatever, or I have skills. And then the bard doesn't have spells, he's got abilities, and so on and so forth. So I would be interested to see differing interpretations connect.
Mhm.
Yeah, as well as each of the scars is its own world and has its own things. Where in book one, when we essentially meet the demonic goat thingy, and he's essentially strip mining our planet, and
Mm-hmm.
we think that's the biggest threat. But then by the end of two, we know that higher ascenders can literally scrape the whole planet and add it to their new base planet. Yeah, it's just a lot of differing potential worlds between, the worlds that are made of names, between worlds that are developed for plant life, between worlds that are designed to kill you, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of ever expanding potential, and yeah, I could see several what is it, OVAs, like not canon but in the same world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's honestly the biggest reason he has a distinction of this is a separate IP or intellectual property, because it does operate differently. So all of the structure and foundation of the other world doesn't necessarily apply here. And yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. It's definitely a fun book. Um, Lighthearted. Don't have to take it too seriously. Just murder hobo your way through it and have fun. I Yeah, looking forward to number 3. We get that tease at the end, like you're really going to find out kind of what's going down after Zed does his whole magic bit. You found the ones that I wanted you to find. I've been leading you along the whole way. Master villain type dealio. Um,
Well, the sad reality is, like, within a very short amount of time, we've already surpassed everybody on this world because they're
mhm.
all fluffy bricks.
They're all fluffy bricks.
As well as we have, higher ascenders assisting us and trying to recruit us. And
Mhm.
the world is ending could be from several differing things. And that's what's, it was executed well for we've overcome this hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it turns out you're still just a bug on the windshield of life.
Mhm.
And yeah, you think this planet is worth saving. This planet isn't even, this is where we hold our fish in our aquarium.
It's not even my final form.
Yeah.
My
uh
potentia is over 9,000. Come at me, brah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Since we're just bouncing all over the place, in the Dakota Krout space, we also have Praetorian Archive Book 10, which is out. You should get to see us work that back into our rotation in the relatively near future. And I think I shared it in the Discord, but Dakota also made an announcement that we're getting book 2 of the second arc of the Ritualist in the Completionist Chronicles. Um,
Okay.
Invent.
Yeah. Or what's the name of
So
it?
Invent, which gosh, it's been forever since I've done the Completionist Chronicles. Minor spoilers, he's pretty much gone to like a reductionist mode, right? And has like really learned kind of like the whole crafting bit and everything. Uh,
Or yeah, that's Joe's new class.
mm-hmm.
And that's where at first I was like, aha, Easter eggs, they are connected. But then he's like, nope, nope,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
just a novel concept that also applies here.
So you can read the first 5 chapters on mountaindalepress.store of the book if you got time for that noise. The audiobook, it looks like if you pre-order is going to be $12.99. And you get that July 1st as opposed to Audible August 1st. So I think $12.99 is still a little bit more than a credit works out to be on Audible, but anything to
I
directly
would
support the
say
authors, like,
he's definitely put in the grind to earn my respect. That
mhm.
I he's probably been the majority of our content.
I don't know
His
about
circle,
majority. Good chunk of it. Good chunk of it.
what is it? 5 for Divine, 9 through Arturian Archives, oh, 6 in Ritualist.
It's still probably
Oh,
30, 40 of our
okay,
streamings, but
okay.
we're at
Yeah, I guess I can't
125.
say majority, but
Yeah, yeah.
a hefty chunk. He's an instant buy.
Yep,
I know he's
yep.
off to bigger and better things and organizing his whole fleet of people that are writing books. And
I think they got like
yeah,
25 authors now as part of his publishing group.
yeah.
There's a
I need
lot of good
to.
stuff over there we need to get through. I guess if you
I
look at it in that grand scheme of things, we have done a number of those titles, which is why we try to branch out. And we're going to go back to some of the other series that we know and love. I think I've talked Peter back into coming back to Dune, which I keep still bring up and reference in everyday life so often. Um, Probably get God Emperor of
or
Dune.
fear is the mind killer.
That yep. A lot of good stuff and lessons from that. Um, but yeah, that and gosh, you could say probably lit RPGs is kind of becoming our thing, majority of our content. But yeah, I don't even know. Does this technically count as lit RPG? Probably does. I'm curious now. Let's
Uh,
let's see what.
so that I believe comes down to semantics,
Fair enough.
and I yeah, I like the term lit RPG because that's one that stuck with me, but it could
It's
also
all
be
a
like
marketing
video
bit
game lit
anyway,
or
right?
fantasy game elements or interactive game or blah 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 blah. But
Mhm.
there's a lot that have stood the test of time, such as fantasy or sci-fi, and
So,
it's
according to Amazon, take that for what you will. Bestseller rank number ones in puns and word humor or wordplay humor.
okay.
Five young or teen and young adult humorous ebooks and teen young adult sword and sorcery fantasy ebooks. So all that stuff is just marketing mumbo jumbo, but congrats to Dakota Krout on being number one in puns and wordplay humor, humor. Um, but yeah,
Oh man, now I'm just thinking about how Cookie is the hammer bone of the
I was
year
about
and
to
how the
say,
magic water is able to regenerate you and who did it actually come
mhm.
from. Oh man, and that like there were a lot of great elements and I'm sorry Dakota, but I've just life's been kicking my butt, but I soon eventually I'm gonna do more deep dives because there were a lot of like he definitely had his Thor moment where he like spun the hammer, chucked it up in the air, jumped after it, and like rode it through the air into slow fall.
Mhm.
Um, and then there are a lot of other just like beautifully elegant moments that need
Yes,
to be immortalized
yes.
or have been immortalized, but I would like to put in my 2 cents.
Projects not in the immediate future, but we promise on the horizons. We have a couple other projects we're trying to push through over the next month or so, but we promise you guys. It's been touching having friends, fellow geeks, even some of the authors we know and love reach out to us over the last month and be like, "Hey, you guys doing okay? We've noticed that you've missed a couple streams and everything. And yes, we're doing well. Life is just kicking it up into high gear, and we're still working on grinding out to a higher tier in our Geek on My Sleeve profession tree. We just have to kind of like take a little bit and grind out a few other skill points in other aspects of our life. But once we get a few of those quest chains done and completed, you better believe we'll be back on this storyline and do what's it called? What type of run? A not necessarily a speed run, but we're going to aim for our Geek on My Sleeve perfect run here when we come back. Okay, nose goes.
Okay. Actually, we are currently leveling up our skill, so it's not available to us.
Oh, that's
Way
right.
to connect it to the story.
In this plane of existence, the time dilation, you have to wait 3 to 4 business weeks before it becomes unlocked.
Yep.
And we don't want to get trapped in between realms. Well
But yeah,
done.
I
Well
like
done.
the perfect run. I don't know if it really applies,
Have we
but
done
I
book
guess it
3 of the
does.
perfect run yet?
What's up?
Have we done book 3 of the perfect run yet?
I've read it. I do not believe we have done
Gosh,
it.
man, now I'm conflicted about which books to throw into our immediate rotation. Have you
Yeah.
committed to what we're doing next week?
I have not. This is the first opportunity I've had to sit in front of my computer,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
currently have IRL slash the sun light hurts my eyes
Mm-hmm.
activities.
Yeah. So I know that we do our best to try to give you guys a heads up. Unfortunately, I think you're just going to have to stalk us digitally and watch for us to post the thumbnails, hopefully in the near future. But there's just so many good books that we want to come back to. Right now, it looks like we're leaning towards giving Sound Booth Theater and Matt Dinneman some love next week. We will let you know, contemplating either continuing Dungeon Crawler Carl or Dominion's Blade. But that might change on the fly here. Once again, we appreciate you guys and your support. Life has just been a bit OP lately, and yeah.
Yep.
Um, Still aiming for next Sunday, 4 p.m.
Yeah. Update is 8 made sense prior. Things in life has changed, so it's probably going to be more of a 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Sundays.
for at least the next couple weeks or so. But we'll
Yeah.
keep you guys up to date. Thank you for joining us on Geek Out 125 Anything Full Murderhobo by Dakota Krout. Yeah, like 125, big milestone. Really appreciate the support and everybody who's reached out to check in on us. We're still here. We're still geeking out. Going to keep on keeping on, even if it's not as consistent as we want to be. But promise we're going to get back to the grind and get you guys some more content and a couple other projects out from behind the curtains here shortly. So, yeah. Thanks again, guys, for geeking out with us. And you want to sign off, Pete?
Yep. Hope to geek out with you here again soon. Bye.
Bye.